So today's video, you will see behind me, got my 2001 Ford F350 7.3 liter four-wheel drive diesel pick-em-up truck. So hey, she is a 23-year-old truck. She's got her issues, but she's actually been really reliable. For me at least, I've used it to haul all kinds of stuff. I would pull mini excavators and skid loaders and things along that nature almost regularly with this truck, and the only major issues I really had with it was brake calipers. I think brake calipers was the worst thing I've ever had on this. No, I actually lost the drive shaft going to work. I was cruising down the interstate, and then truck started shaking really hard, and then lots of RPMs and not going anywhere. Bought a new drive shaft, slapped it in there, everything's fine. So the purpose of the video today, as you see behind me here, I have some stuff to do, a bunch of fluid changes. Transmission, transfer case, engine oil. I got two different kinds of differential fluid. I got 75 140 for the rear differential and 7590 for the front differential. It's done everything I asked it to do, so in return I guess I'm going to start sinking a little bit of money into it. I might make a little series out of this. It's a perfectly good truck, nothing wrong with it, it just simply needs a few updates. So one thing that I am for sure going to be doing, convince myself whether if I want to do injectors or not at this point in time. I probably should do injectors, mainly because this truck has 198,000 miles on it, and I guarantee you those are factory injectors. So yeah, like I said, those may be something I decide to just go ahead and do injectors on this. So go ahead, ask the question that we're all waiting for an answer. Joel, why are you sinking a bunch of money into a 23-year-old truck? Well, here's because this truck is super reliable, and it can be even more reliable with just a few little minor updates. The other half of that is I don't want to spend $40,000 on a brand used truck. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I already have a mortgage. I don't need two mortgages, you know what I'm saying? So I would rather sink a couple K into this and make this really nice and make, bring it back to its glory day back in 2001. Oh yeah, by the way, notice a little spot right there? That is power steering fluid. I mean, it's ATF, but it's power steering fluid. One of the power steering lines right here behind the bumper got a pinhole in it, and it literally just started leaking as I pulled it into the shop, because I've never seen that wet spot until now. So to change the engine oil, this truck's been sitting in here overnight. So I'm going to start the truck up, let it warm up, cycle some of the oil. I will get to draining all the oil and moving on with it and having a good time. You know how I know I'm working on a Ford? Because the hood's always up. Went ahead and got a new drain plug for the oil pan. It's always a smart idea when you're using one of these oil drains or oil pans. Make sure you take that little screw out of there. Alright, now that we got that draining, come up here, we'll pop this cap. Kind of acts like a vent, so that way that oil drains out quickly. Now we just play the waiting game and let that oil finish draining out, and we'll get back at it. Now I gotta get that there oil filter, get it plumb down there. Alright, let's see if I can do this without splashing oil everywhere. Goodness gracious, I was making sure this thing was not coming off, huh? I'm sure you guys could probably see it's pretty oily under here. Especially with the valve covers. Probably been leaking on this truck ever since I've owned it. So I do plan on remedying that issue. Because like I said, my glow plugs don't work like I used to, so I'm going to be ripping into that, changing the harness out, and all that jazz. Now when it comes to doing filters and things along that nature, especially oil filters, I like to do the OEM replacement oil filter. So for my 2001 7.3, that will be the part number for the Motorcraft brand. I always get Motorcraft brand for this truck. Same thing with all my GMs. Anytime I replace parts on my Chevy truck, I always try to go with AC Delco. But to digress, let's get that slapped in. So typically anytime I put an oil filter on, I get it on hand tight as best as I can, and then I just give it a little snug with the oil filter wrench. And I'm pretty content with that, so we're gonna run with that. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe this gets 16 quarts of oil. Okay, according to this, it is looking mighty fine. Of course, you gotta take in consideration it's gotta fill up the oil filter and so on. All right, so engine oil is changed. Next thing we are going to do is the front differential. Seeing as how we're already working up here, we might as well knock it out. So should be pretty easy. I ain't sweating it. Like I said, it's just old oil coming out, new oil going in, right? Should be pretty easy. All right, so now we're going to get into this front differential. So there is no drain plug on these, so you have to take the front differential cover off. Same with the rear. So what we will do, I got my drain pan here. We will take all these bolts out, pop it loose, and let it drain. Well, the color looks good, so can't argue about that. Doesn't look burnt. It certainly smells like gear oil. There's a little bit of darker fluid. So like I said, I've put about 50,000 miles on this truck, and I have never changed the differential fluids on it. You won't believe this, but I forgot a bolt. I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but I mean, for the most part, that doesn't look horrible. It is a little shiny in there, but that's to be expected because, like I said, I've never changed the fluid on this, and I've put at least 50,000 miles on this truck since I've owned it. It's pretty much all we really got to do. Now to put it back on, we need to clean all the gasket material off the mating surface here. We need to do the same thing with the cover as well. Get it nice and cleaned up, make it real shiny, and then just glue her back together. Slip a couple bolts in there, and then the next thing I would suggest is while your truck is currently in the air, lock them four-wheel drive hubs and just spin this front axle. Just look at them teeth on these gears. Make sure you don't see any abnormal wear marks or any chips or chunks missing. I will let this drain for as much as I can, and then I will get some rags and I'll get in there and start mopping up some of that old fluid out of there. Because if there's going to be metal material floating around in the oil. There's no getting around that. So, but I would like to try to clean out as much of that metal material out as I possibly can before I put new fluid in. So we're going to let this one kind of sit and drip, and then we're going to start taking the rear off. So now we're back here. We are going to pop all these bolts out, and then we're going to do the same thing that we did up front. We're going to get under here. We're going to pop this bottom lip out and let it all drain out before we go ahead and take the whole cover off. And don't mind any rust that you see. I do live in the Rust Belt, so everything is ate up. It is what it is. Nar. Well, shoot. Definitely made a mess of that. Oh boy, this has had some water in it. Looks awfully milky. Plus I can see all the rust. Alright, let's get you guys up here so you can see what's going on. So, definitely a little milky in there. There's definitely, you can see some rust. So there's definitely water getting into this. This is probably that front pinion seal. That thing is probably leaking. See all them little shiny spots? You know, like that shine, all these little shiny spots. Yeah, those shouldn't be there. That's concerning. Somebody else's problem. That's future Joel's problem. Alright, so one thing you could do while you're in here waiting for all that to drain is kind of like get a rag, shove a rag up and just kind of help mop some of that down, you know what I'm saying? The more of this older fluid you get out, the better. Alright, so as you can see, this is my front differential. This is my rear differential. Both the covers for front and rear. I want to say this one was definitely sealed up a lot better than that one was. Because this one, the oil came out really clean in the front. But in the back, it came out looking like chocolate milk. So moisture had been getting to it. So when I go to put that on, I need to make sure that the rear differential housing is sealed up, well, is really cleaned up. Make sure the rear axle is nice and the mating surface for the cover is nice and cleaned up, nice and shiny, no issues there. Smear a little bit of RTV on that, plumb her back on, fill it full of oil. You'll be in good shape. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, take these to the wire wheel and buff those up as much as I can. I'll take a razor blade and I'll cut all the excess off of that, and then I'll scrape off what I can scrape off, and what I can't I'll just wire wheel off and call it a day. Now a good rule of thumb is when you reinstall these, to wait 24 hours for that RTV to seal and then add your fluid. So more than likely, I don't need this truck as of right now. Right, I have no intentions on hauling anything anytime soon, so it can be down for a little while. I've got another vehicle I can drive until this is all buttoned up. So this sitting for 24 hours isn't going to hurt me none. So let's go ahead and get these cleaned up and then go from there. Alright, as you guys see here, I got them cleaned up pretty good. I don't know how well you can see that, but there definitely was moisture in that rear end. The inside of that differential cover should not have rust like it does. So before I install that, I'm going to buff that out. I'm not going to bore you guys watching me do that. So once I get this cleaned up, we will apply the goop and smack it on. Oh, and then I do got to clean up the bolts. So my main goal is to make sure that no moisture gets in that rear end, because that's what's going to wreck things, is that moisture getting in there. Too much water in the system kind of deal will start rusting things, but then it's gonna dilute the actual gear oil and thin it out, so it doesn't have the heat protection as it would being nothing but oil, right? So it's gonna make that rear end, it's gonna make all the gears and such fail prematurely. Alright, now that we're back under here, we're going to slap this whole thing back up on there. Alright, now we got the rear diff cover on. We will go install the front diff cover, and then we're going to let it sit for 24 hours before I put the fluid in them. Alright, I got the gasket maker put on already. I'm going to try to gingerly apply this. Something like that. Hold it. Hold it. No, there's a special place for that bolt. All right, and there you have it. The front differential cover is installed. So I'm going to let this one cure for 24 hours, just like the rear one, and then, like I said, we'll finish putting fluid in it and move on with it. All right, so I didn't get as much done today as I'd hoped for, but that's all right. Like I said, I am in no need nor hurry for this truck to be done right now. So let's see, we got the oil change, new oil filter, and then we got the front and rear differential covers off, all the oil drained out, and we got the covers cleaned up and reinstalled. So I'm going to let those marinate for 24 hours and then come back, fill them up with fluid, and after that I'm going to tackle the transmission and transfer case. I have a new filter for the transmission and fresh fluid for both transfer case and transmission. So once that's done, hopefully by that point I'll have some more of my fancy parts, and then we can do videos on me installing my fancy parts. Pretty excited about that. But in conclusion, we'll just call this part 1 of the Powerstroke build. There we go. How about that? All right. Thanks for tagging along. I'll see you on the next one.